Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog, and today we're going to be talking about the Denver Nuggets. This is a team that has gotten off to a very slow start this year, and specifically Michael Porter Jr. has gotten off to a very slow start this year. The first game was really good. I think they played Phoenix first, and he had 15 points in that game. And since then, it seems almost as if he has not been able to get into a rhythm. I've watched the Nuggets play a little bit because I got a ongoing bet with my cousin between LaMelo Ball and Michael Porter Jr. at the moment. But Michael Porter Jr. was expected to be like he was expected to take a step forward this year, and he still could. Obviously, we're only 4 games in for the Denver Nuggets, but he has gotten off to an incredibly slow start, like a slower start than I thought he would. Michael Porter Jr. still isn't much of a shot creator. He's more of a finisher and a catch-and-shoot guy, which is really, I think, hurting his game. That's the one flaw in his game that I've seen so far, is that he doesn't really do much shot creating. And just the Nuggets as a whole, their offense seemed like last night seemed like the first time they played with any real type of consistency. I wouldn't even call it consistent. It was more like Aaron Gordon and Will Barton backpacking them the entire game, you know? And like at this point, I have to ask if the Nuggets really have like a strategy this year. So far they're like in the 20s as far as offense, and last year they were like 8th. Last time I checked they were 26th. It could have went up since playing the Utah Jazz last night. But watching the Nuggets play, I've seen in the past couple games, they just look completely out of touch. It's very weird. Like, they have Aaron Gordon and Will Barton getting more shots than Michael Porter Jr. There's times it's like, yes, Will Barton played very well last night, but there were times where I was like, does Will Barton realize that like there's 4 other people on the floor with him? Because like it feels like every time Will Barton gets the ball, he's shooting it, and I don't understand why. I feel like every time he gets the ball, it's like he feels obligated to shoot it, and I don't know why, but there was even like a moment there where Will Barton and Michael Porter Jr. were going back and forth, and Michael Porter Jr. has shot like shit like so far this year. He's shot like shit. He's shooting like 30% from the field. And I expect that to turn around at some point, but obviously it's going to take some adjusting, I guess you could say, to get used to not playing with Jamal Murray, even though they did it for like the last half of last year. Jokic is got a knee contusion now after last night, so he could potentially miss some time. I'm not sure how much time he'll miss. He might miss a game or two, but I don't know how much time he's actually going to miss. But it's just that I feel like the Denver Nuggets offense has no rhythm to it at the current point in time. There's no bona fide number 2 option, it seems, right now. Like, I'm watching Jokic play. I've watched like 3 or 4 Nuggets games at this point. Like, I've watched 2 definitively, and the third I was kind of like, here and there. But watching them play, I'm like, okay, we know Joker is going to get his, right? Like, we know Joker is going to, put up 20 points, grab you like 13, maybe 14 boards or so, and he's going to dish out some assists. He's going to get maybe a block or something. Like, we know Joker is going to do his thing, right? We know he's the reigning MVP. He's going to get his. But at the second time, I'm like, okay, who's the number 2 guy? We got Aaron Gordon shooting pull-up threes. We got Will Barton taking a shot every time he touches the ball. And I get it, Will Barton played very good last night, but we just gave Michael Porter Jr. a $200 million contract? Like, I'm sorry, but I think in these types of moments, when you want Michael Porter Jr. to be the guy you expect him to be, you need to give him the ball. You need to let him operate, regardless of what the result is, okay? I honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I feel like this year is going to be a little bit of a wash for the Denver Nuggets. Depending on when Jamal Murray comes back, I don't expect the Denver Nuggets to be contenders without him. I just don't. They're still a good team without him. They're probably a playoff team without him still. I mean, they had 14 guys come back out of their roster last year, so they have pretty much the same team. It's just, I really wonder if, if they can actually make a run without Jamal Murray. I really wonder if they can make a legitimate run without him. I think he's going to come back this year, but at the same time, it's by the time he comes back, you'll probably be around playoff time. So this is a team that has to try to make the playoffs or put themselves in a position to make the playoffs without Jamal Murray. And I get it. Jokic is going to get his, but at the same time, if Jokic is out, okay, and if for whatever reason Jokic goes out, or God forbid, okay, Jokic has an injury where he misses a prolonged period of time, right? You need to be able to rely on Michael Porter Jr. to take you to the promised land, so to speak, okay? And if he's not getting these shot attempts, okay, we know Will Barton can play. Aaron Gordon, yes, he's a good player, but he's not as good as Michael Porter Jr. And it really makes me question, yes, last night, Michael Porter Jr. against the Jazz got 16 shot attempts. But in the 2 games before that, he was getting maybe 10 attempts. I watched him shoot the ball 10 times. I think it was 10 and 11 shots he got in those 2 games. And I'm thinking to myself, you just signed this guy to a max deal. You just extended his contract, gave him $200 million, and you're letting Will Barton take shots? You're letting Aaron Gordon shoot shots? This is the high-paying man. Okay, this is the guy you paid. If you want him to grow, you got to put the ball in his hands. And I'm not saying that Will Barton shouldn't get his. I'm not saying that Aaron Gordon shouldn't get his. I'm simply saying they shouldn't be getting more than Michael Porter Jr. That's all I'm saying, okay? I think we tend to forget, or if, I don't know if Denver tends to forget it, or Mike Malone is just not comfortable with him. I don't know what the deal is, but you could argue that if Michael Porter Jr. didn't have a back injury and actually played more than 2 games at Mizzou when he was in college, the Nuggets got a guy who was arguably definitively the number 1 pick in his draft at the very last pick in the lottery at 15th or 16th or whatever. They got Michael Porter Jr. in that draft, and he's a dude that if he had played every single game in college, probably would have went number 1 overall. So all I'm saying is, if you want this team to take its next step forward, now's the time. Okay? When these early games, when you can afford to fuck up some early games, let Michael Porter shoot the ball. Let Michael Porter do his thing. Let him take some ISOs. Let him, go to the basket. Let him operate. Okay? You just paid him $200 million. And I'm watching them play, and it's I get it. Like I said, Will Barton's good, but I just don't understand why Will Barton is taking more shots than Michael Porter Jr. Because if I were Mike Malone, I'm just saying, man, I get it. Will Barton's the vet. He did his thing last night, even if I feel like he was taking some ridiculous shots early in, right before Jokic got injured. It was crazy, actually. Will Barton and Michael Porter Jr. got into it, and then Will Barton started going off. I don't know why, but for me, it's Will Barton is taking a lot more shots than I think he's entitled to. And, if Will Barton were getting paid $200 million, I'd understand that. But at the same time, it's he's not, So Michael Porter Jr., I think, needs the ball in his hands more. And that's another thing I just want to say. Because Michael Porter Jr. isn't getting these shots, the past couple games I watched them play, like I said, Michael Porter Jr. is getting maybe 10, 11 shots a game, it seems. You need to get him more shots, okay? If you want Michael Porter Jr. to get into a rhythm and, become the guy that he is, you got to get him some shots, man. If Jokic is getting, 12 20, 40, or not 20, 40, but if he's getting like 19, 20 shots, Michael Porter Jr. should arguably getting anywhere from 14 to 16 shots a night if Jamal Murray is sitting. That's my personal opinion. And not only that, but also the past couple games I watched him play, Jokic seems like he's trying to Russell Westbrook this team to the playoffs. And I get it. He's the reigning MVP, like I said. But there's zero reason to me why Jokic should be trying to run a fast break. Okay? I know he's capable of it, but he's not, let's not get it twisted, okay? He's not Russell Westbrook. He's not Kyrie Irving. He's not Kevin Durant. He's a center, okay? He doesn't play point guard for a reason. I know he's done it before because the Nuggets once had a roster where they had to play Jokic at center because they had so many injuries. But let's not get it twisted, okay? I don't know what Mike Malone is doing. I don't know what his plan is, but I just think for this team to succeed, they need to get Michael Porter Jr. in a good rhythm, and they need to do it soon, okay? Yes, you can, maybe the first 10 to 15 games, you can deal with not getting him shots and giving everyone else an attempt or so, but when you start getting into I want to say December, January, okay, once end of November into December, once you start getting there, okay, you got to stop fucking around, okay? You need to figure out what you're going to do on offense, who your main guys are going to be. Obviously, Jokic is going to be one of them, but Michael Porter Jr. needs to be your definitive second if you're paying him the amount of money you're paying him. That's all I'm saying. I personally would like to see Michael Porter Jr. more involved. I'm watching the Nuggets with a very close eye this year, as well as the Charlotte Hornets, because like I said, I got a bet going on with my cousin between Michael Porter Jr. and LaMelo Ball. But I would like to see Michael Porter Jr. be, given the role he's being paid for, essentially. And the Nuggets are still very good on defense, but to start the season, they're in the I guess you could say the mid to early 20s, maybe even low 20s. Last night when I checked, they were 26th before the Utah Jazz game. They were 26th in offense so far this year, scoring 99 points per game. I'm pretty positive they're maybe a spot lower. Maybe they're 25th, 24th. Their pace, the amount of points they're scoring, it's fucking horror story, okay? So all I'm saying is they need to figure out their offense. And for a team that brought back 14 guys from the season before, it's a little concerning to me that all you're missing is Jamal Murray, and we're struggling on offense over here. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not going to start, raising the alarm on Denver this early. Obviously, they got some things to work out. You know what I'm saying? It's still early in the season, so I'm not going to count them out. I'm not going to count Michael Porter Jr. out. But it's just the idea. I feel like if you have him on your roster, if you're paying him the type of money you're paying him, it's time to make him your bona fide number 2 option while Jamal Murray is out. And to be fair, as time goes on, I expect Michael Porter Jr. to become the number 2 option for Denver. Jokic is number 1. I expect Michael Porter Jr. to be number 2. And when Jamal Murray comes back to be, or at some point in time, if it's not this year, down the road, Jamal Murray be your number 3. Just because Michael Porter Jr. is that talented. And I'm sure there's going to be Nuggets fans who disagree with me, but if you can turn Jamal Murray into a guy who can score and pass, facilitate the ball a little more, and if Jamal Murray can set it up to where he's scoring 15 or 17 a game and he's making sure that Jokic gets 20 and Michael Porter Jr. is getting, 18 to 20 a game, the Nuggets could become a very, very good team. So we have to wait and see what happens here. I'm sure there's Nuggets fans out there who will completely disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't watch the Nuggets enough to, really, side with you in opinion or dissect the Nuggets down to a T. I just know Michael Porter Jr. is incredibly talented, and so far from what I've seen the first 4 games this year, Michael Porter Jr. seems like he's being an afterthought in Mike Malone's offense. And I think that's a huge mistake if you want to make the playoffs this year. That's all I'm saying. So tell me what you guys think down below in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. Helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more. This has been the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.